You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to the writingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
Hello and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Writing Community Chat Show. It is Friday. I'm so excited to be back. We had a bonus show midweek that Chris Hooley did amazingly well to host on his own with the brilliant Karen Slaughter. That is fantastic. I caught up with that brilliant interview with so much good information and tips. Please go and check that out if you haven't done so. So I was very jealous to be out of the mix and not there for that show, but I'm very excited to be back tonight. And it means it's Friday. It means the weekend is here, and it means I get to have a catch up with my friend and co-host Chris Hooley. So Chris, nice to see you again. How did Wednesday go? How has your week been?
Yeah, Wednesday was one of those things that the more I looked into Karen, the more I started to make myself feel anxious because I was like, oh my God, that's a lot of books. And then when it got closer and closer to the conversation, I was writing down notes. I was thinking, I'm going to ask her about this. I'm going to ask her about this. That completely went out the window when the interview started. You wrote really good questions as well in the chat that I didn't ask. So that's how well that went. But I got through the interview, and like you said, there's some really great nuggets of advice in there. She was obviously such a really lovely woman as well. So yeah, it was a pleasure to chat to her. Gutted that you weren't there, but newfound appreciation for the things that you do, Agate, because people may think that it looks easy, but it's not, controlling everything and multitasking. So
you did a brilliant job. Yes. No, it was really good. And when you say about how much she's done, and I did the same looking into it, and don't worry about the questions, that always happens, that we just talk over those questions because the conversation's more real that way, and that's what we like. But yeah, over 40 million books and multiple New York Times bestsellers. So yeah, Anna says it was a great interview. Don't beat yourself up. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, and welcome to the show this Friday, and to Anya in the chat as well. If you are watching this, thank you so much for doing so. If you're watching back, brilliant. We love people to watch back. In the comments on the YouTube, let us know what you've been up to this week. So Anya has already said she's got some writing done this week, so that's brilliant. Have you been writing? Have you been reading? If you've been reading, let us know what you've been reading. If it's someone new, if it's someone historical. I don't mean in fiction. I just mean in terms of being an older author of the times we're in. It's interesting to know what you're getting into, and especially if you've been writing and how that's gone for you as well. So I have not been writing, Chris. I know that our chat group, we have got a lot of people posting into the chat that we talk about in our after show. There's some brilliant evolution of the stories going on there. Have you written this week?
Yeah, I managed to get some. I didn't do anything for the first few days, but then I've caught up on myself now, which is good. I put a new screensaver on my phone, actually. I don't know if I can.
Ooh.
Yeah, I can show you.
Interesting.
So, just says read, write, and learn.
That's a bit of a daily motivation, yeah.
Yeah, because if I don't do one of those three things when I pick up my phone, I'm doing something wrong. So yeah. I've got that on there, and that has helped.
I mean, that's a really cool idea, because the amount of people that pick up their phone by habit, and even if they're going to scroll through and not actually take in what they're looking at, because it's so automatic these days, if that constant reminder is there to read, learn, and write, you're going to be picking that up. You know what I mean? I think that's good exercise.
Yeah, it does program you, because the screensaver that I had before that was
drink beer.
Nothing. no, not
drink,
quite.
sleep, repeat.
It was nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And it was a Shakespeare quote. And that has really stuck with me. I had that for about 6 months on the front. And now whenever I get sort of faced with the situation that I start to tick around in my mind, that quote just comes immediately. And I think about that, and it kind of makes me feel a bit better.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that quote. There's a YouTube channel, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it's called, but they get a load of really quality actors, professional actors, and they were sat around a table. It was Tom Hanks, there was Robert De Niro, all these amazing actors. And Tom Hanks had this brilliant wisdom he was spewing out. And he said one thing that really resonated and stuck with me. And he said, the people need to realize, or hopefully will learn one day, whether they're good times or bad times, they will pass. So, you know what I mean? When you're stuck in that mindset, whether you're in writer's block or you're on a high, both of those things will pass and you'll return to your kind of set level. So whether you're stressing or you're anxious and whatever, you'll get to that point where you're back in the zone. So, you know, that's really good advice as well. I like that. Tom Hanks is wise. Yes, he is. And he's also witty. Okay, Chris, should we get our guest on? Because I'm very excited to chat to our guest. And Any Human Power, which is lovely looking above Chris Hooley's head, up on the left-hand side, is going to be a very interesting book to talk about. And this person's got a fantastic career. So are you ready to chat to this person, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to speak to her.
Yes. So today, we are thrilled to have the extraordinary Manda Scott with us. Manda is a former Scottish veterinary surgeon who has transformed into a prolific novelist, blogger, podcaster, columnist, and occasional broadcaster. Manda made her literary debut with a crime novel Hen's Teeth, which was shortlisted for the 1997 Orange Prize. She quickly gained recognition as one of Britain's most important crime writers, as noted by the Times with his subsequent novels Nightmares, Stronger Than Death, and No Good Deed, the latter of which was nominated for the 2003 Edgar Award. Manda is also a respected voice in journalism, having written columns for The Herald, The Independent, The Guardian, The Daily Telegraph, The Times, and The Huffington Post. Additionally, she hosts the successful podcast Accidental Gods, which explores issues relating to the meta-crisis and envisions a better future. Today, we'll explore Manda's journey from veterinary medicine to literary acclaim, discuss her latest work, Any Human Power, and take your questions live. So please join me in giving a nice warm welcome to Manda Scott. Hello, Manda.
Hey guys, thank you. I think I'm going to be a real letdown after Chris's earlier guest, but hey.
Not at all. Not at all. Every single guest has a brilliant story, so we're there for the stories. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we've had some communication. You've not been very well this week, but you've made it to the show, and we're very grateful.
Yes, I am
How are
here.
you feeling?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm okay. I'm vertical, and I can stitch a sentence together. So we're doing so far okay.
Yes.
Okay, so far. See, I'm not actually stitching sentences together.
Yeah,
Don't ask me anything complicated. We'll be fine.
Yeah. Sorry, I jumble my words up all the time. It's not a problem. Yeah. So again, thank you for joining us. Where in the world are you right now?
I'm at home, which is South Shropshire, which is a place that I did not know existed until I met my partner. And definitely, it's one of those places you don't want to say if you're being asked whether you've had a drink at the wheel of a car. Where are you from? South Shropshire. Sounds guaranteed drunk for the start. So it's right on the border with Wales. Wales is about 5 minutes that way.
Nice.
So yeah, it's good. It's one of those edge places. I like edge places, and we're on the edge of the village and the edge of a hill, and yeah, it's a good edgy place to be.
That sounds really nice. Yeah. Is there a river that runs through there?
Yeah, there is. There's the Clun. It's a bit of a way that way. It's one of those things where I'm trying to think of a word. Am I allowed to swear in this podcast?
Of course you are.
Okay,
Yes,
so the absolute fuckers who are doing all of the chicken farming have got about 100 chicken farms up the river, and it says special scientific interest because it's got the only freshwater mussels that the Romans brought and left here, God knows why. And they're just poisoning it. It's horrible. Wow. So I have this vision of the valley being a regenerative agriculture space. And we kind of got the hill, the lovely lady who's on the hill, 750 acres organic, and we're organic. And then the guy between us and the river is like, spray everything. And the river's just dying. It's so sad.
It is very sad. And we've seen a lot of that in the news at the moment. I live in Wales, so I in this area, and I know the rivers run through the gaps between England and Wales. But yeah, we're having a lot of local issues with that, and it's crazy. But you know, what can we do right now?
Are you on the USC? I will get on to books in a minute, but I listened to a podcast earlier today where there's a group that's set up that are the custodians of the USC watershed, which is huge. It goes from mid Wales down to Cardiff. and it's community interest company, and they have a seat on the board for future generations.
Wow.
And I think,
No, I
okay,
didn't know
you
about
guys
that.
are getting it together. So whatever river you're on, set up something like that. Be good.
Yeah, incredible.
Mm.
Okay,
Check the
so
rivers, Chris.
yeah. So my question is then, Shropshire,
Sure.
what's the writing scene like there? Is there a writing scene? Can you connect with different authors? And is it kind of a place where you're recognized for your work?
No, yes, no.
Okay.
So there probably are. There's a couple of people locally that I really connect with, Katie Moran and Paula Braxton, who's just moved south to Hereford, and we talk quite a lot when we connect. I'm a really solitary little bunny.
Yeah.
Actually, Katie and Paula, we walk our dogs together. We did before my dog got old and died. My dog died. So other than that, there might be 1,000 out there and I wouldn't know who they are.
Yeah.
I do occasionally get invited to events and go, oh, you're here. What are you doing here? And they go, I live here. It's like, oh, really? Do you? Annie Garthwaite's not very far away with Cecily. She wrote recently. She's amazing. So I'm sure there are a lot more because Shropshire is actually pretty big.
So it's more than like a community area where people are writers. You've kind of just all congregated towards yourselves.
Yeah, I think
in a weird way.
Yeah. Have you got a dog? I've got a dog. Should we walk dogs together? Because walking dogs is a great way to write. You go and you walk your dog, and your dog often does doggy things, and you can just focus on what you're wanting to write, and you come home and write it. That used to be my game plan. Doesn't work anymore, but it was good for a while.
Yeah, we've talked a few times, Chris, about how writing is really helped if you're in a bit of a writer's block. Get out for a nice walk and clears your mind, and suddenly those ideas are firing again. Yeah, good idea. Get a dog.
Yep. Yeah, get it through the first 18 months of chaos. Sorry, Chris.
No, I always think he's going to find a body. And I can write about that.
Where do you live?
Yeah.
No, because you hear all the time, don't you, that dog walkers are the first people to sort of find a body. And you think, wow, imagine if that actually did happen. Touch wood, it's not happened so far. So
question is,
always go through my mind.
Chris is going for a walk with his dog. They find a body. Do you take a picture, write some notes down for your story, or do you do the right, like, kind of normal thing in front of the police?
Well, you take a picture to send to the police, obviously.
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Chris might not.
Ticking both boxes, I like it. To be honest,
and meanwhile, restrain your dog because it's eating the evidence. And that's
hopefully not. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, Manda, what we're going to do is we're going to play the little part 1 video, which is the road to writing video. And then we're going to have a look into your career as coming from a journalist, going through your career into how you started becoming an author and what the inspirations were for that in the first place. So I'm going to put this little video on and then we'll get stuck into that. So, Manda, take us right back to where you were as a journalist and you were writing.
I was a vet.
Sorry, of course you were. You were a veterinary surgeon and you were working as that, and then you went into the journalism world. At what point was writing a thought process in your mind, and at what point did you move careers into writing?
I'm not sure I actually remember that, So it was in my late 20s and I started realizing I didn't want to be a vet for the rest of my life. It just wasn't big enough in a way. I was an academic vet and that was okay, and I was teaching students and I was doing clinical stuff and it was fine, but I looked at the people higher up and I just didn't want to do that. And what else can you do, to be honest? I remember there was a book called What Color Is Your Parachute, and I spent a lot of time going through it, and it always just came out going, right, of course, right. And nobody told me that writing was hard or that getting published was hard. And I went on to, I was at Cambridge in Norfolk. There was a thing which probably shut down. I can't remember what it was called. It was kind of like Arvon. You'd go away for a week and there would be a tutor who was a famous author and you'd all cook together and get drunk together on the Friday night. So I am the only person in the whole world who has dungeon mastered D&D with Faye Weldon and Terry Pratchett. Because there was only 1 week in the year I could take off because it academic, and this particular place had those people in that week, and so they'd go, "Why are you here?" And I'd go, "Because it's the weekend. Get off, sorry." And then Friday night, everyone would be getting drunk, and I always used to have my D&D dice in the bag because I'm a geek, and and we introduced them both to D&D. It was cool.
Wow.
And that was really,
cool
really
story.
interesting because it was the first time I had anyone taking writing. I would, even when Hen's Teeth was shortlisted for the Orange Prize, I was still full-time vet at that point. And I'd walk into theatre because it was a big clinical theatre and go, hey guys, Orange Prize. And they'd go, oh yeah, okay. Can you get the next dog on the table? And literally that was the amount of interest that they had in it. So being for a whole week with people who actually took writing seriously was amazing. And Faye Weldon was she was the first one, and she said, find your own voice. That was a really big, I didn't know what a voice was. And then Terry he read, by then I can't remember, writing magazine, one of the writing magazines had a competition, and it was for a novel with a feisty female sleuth. And I hated the word feisty, so I spent my first day writing out what I thought of that word to get it out of my system. And discovered years later from Val McDermott that it's Anglo-Saxon for someone who breaks wind, which I thought was hilarious. And then I wrote what became Hen's Teeth. And then they cancelled the competition, which was the story of my life, really. But by then I had an agent, and an agent who said, you're going to have to rewrite it, but I can probably place this. And that got me going. So, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it was a long time before I gave up the day job.
Yeah. But what a brilliant story. Playing D&D.
D&D. Yeah.
Let's say D&G. That's Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. What I like about that is how you mentioned you were winning these great prizes for your writing, and it was obviously a passion for you, and you were working hard on that. And you're going into your workplace, and they were quite simply, oh, well done.
Yeah,
get back to work. Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't know what the Orange Prize was.
Yeah.
I mean, they had no clue. And it wasn't they were being deliberately difficult. It just wasn't part of their reality at all. So, yeah, that's fine. Good.
I suppose for a lot of people in a similar situation who might be writing, who might be gaining success, they might not be, but they know writing's their passion. And they're going into the workplace and they're talking about stuff, and people are saying, oh, yeah, okay, get back to work. What advice might you have for someone who is maybe stuck in that limbo land before they've made any transition, or they might be having doubts about writing because their current life is kind of pulling them back in?
Yeah, you have to find people who take your writing seriously. You've got to find your group. And that was one of the great things about the Arvon things. I've taught at Arvon quite a lot since. And often the groups really gel if it's a good group. And then now you've got WhatsApp and stuff. I mean, in the old days, you had to phone each other up. And we used to, because Norfolk, I suppose, they all came locally, we used to meet up. You know, once every couple of months, we'd meet and we'd give each other writing exercises and we'd read out what we'd written. And at least it was people for whom you could have a conversation about semicolons and people knew what they were talking about, which, you know, they just didn't at work. They absolutely, writing was sending a note to an owner. And that was it. So finding the people who will support you without bringing you down is really important, I think.
Yeah, I like that.
Can you just explain a little bit as to what that was like? Because obviously you've gone from a situation where you're in work every single day, and then you're suddenly going into this field with writers who are, you know, these aren't just any old writers. These are some of the best writers.
People that you've heard of, yeah.
So how does it feel going into that? And at any point were you intimidated, or was it such a warm and welcoming environment?
It was
the latter. That? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was really lucky in that neither of them was feeling that they were above them. They weren't trying to put us down. They were both genuinely there trying to help and saying really useful things. And they could have, I mean, it could have been really destructive because, goodness knows, looking back at what I was writing then. But, and I'm not a Faye Weldon or a Terry Pratchett, but I've been in the teaching situation then. And I know if you've put yourself in that place, you have a moral responsibility to do the best you can for the person in front of you, wherever they are. And I think they taught me that as well. They were really, really good at, this is where you are, I will help you. And Faye was amazing. I wrote a couple of scripts and she got them in front of a BBC producer. They didn't get made, but my goodness, now I look at that and think that was way above and beyond. And Terry read the whole of the first novel and made some really serious, good comments on it. And I wouldn't do that now. You go into these things and go, I will help you while I'm here, but guys, I cannot read your novel. I absolutely do not have time. Yeah. I'm really sorry. But he was astonishing. And he said things that proved in the end to be absolutely 100% correct. So it was a really, really good starting point. I was incredibly lucky.
Wow.
And when they said to you, find your voice, did they sort of give you any tips as to how to do that?
Well,
And
yeah,
can you
yes.
remember how you did
Oh,
that?
God,
And
no.
when you found that moment where you were like, this is me now, I'm ready to go with what I've got?
Well, first of all, no, I didn't get a chance to ask her because it was one of those passing comments, and there were so many passing comments that it was only afterwards that I realized that one, listen to this matters. There were a few others that she said that I can't remember, but that's the one that really stuck. And then I went away and read books and thought, what's the voice? Until I found ones that I felt had a strong voice. And so Val McDermid was an obvious one because lesbian crime writer. In the end, the first few novels were crime novels. But a few others of people who I can't even remember who they are, and they're probably not names that anybody knows anymore. But just, what is a voice? What does it sound like? And what does this writer sound like if they're writing this kind of book or this kind of book? Because there was a time when you could write different styles of books and still be published. And so it just became a quest for the next few years of what is a voice. And it's okay to write the voice you hear in your head onto the page, and that will be all right. You don't have to try and sound like somebody else. You have to sound like you. And that, again, just even understanding that was okay was huge.
Nice. I'm interested, going back to the veterinary medicine. Did that influence any of your writing when you were working? Because you were still writing at the time.
Yeah.
Did you use that a lot? Your personal experience to put into your work?
The first 3 novels for sure, because I was literally getting up at 5 a.m. so I could write for an hour before I went to work. Wow. And there was one Christmas. My parents were still alive, and Mum said, "What do you want for Christmas?" I said, "All I want is time to write." And she went, "Well, I can't make that happen. Here, have something else." And that Christmas, I was at Cambridge, and every year, London Vet School would have a salmonella outbreak that miraculously lasted from about 15th of December till about the 6th of January. Amazing. And they couldn't take in any colics. And we ended up with double the number of colics, and every single year. And we're going, guys, please, could we not have a salmonella? Right? We can have it in summer, I don't care, but could we not just do this? And I was the anaesthetist, and I would just be back to back colics. And this particular year, I was on call because I didn't have kids, so I volunteered to be on call at Christmas because it doesn't matter to me. And I was on call from about the 21st to, let's say, 29th, and I didn't get called out once. And that was when I was writing Hen's Teeth, and I finished the book in that time. It's like, okay, so somebody others, I think, because I had to keep checking the phone. With landlines and those, just pick it up, make sure it's still doing, because I thought someone's cut the phone lines. This can't be happening. So I can't remember your question now. Sorry, what was
about how kind of your professional experience or
I see.
knowledge.
Yes. So other than that, crime novels. I used to say I used to walk into the pathology department and ask them how they'd kill their mother-in-law, which actually is not true. But I could have. I didn't need to do the first 3 books. The first book was a PhD I didn't do, but I'd been offered, which was about, we were going to be inserting the gene for insulin into sheep so that they would milk with insulin in. And I had signed an NDA saying I would never talk about this. Okay, it's blood now. But I just put it in eggs. Hen's Teeth, I just put it in eggs. And then someone had tweaked it so that if you ate the egg, you got an insulin overdose and died. But who's going to notice that? Because a pathologist finding insulin. And that was that. The second one was I read a research paper. This must have been in the 90s, from about 10, 15 years before. And they had decided it would be a fun idea to test out inserting radioactive rods into the cervix of women to see if it treated uterine cancer. Wow. And they picked women who didn't have uterine cancer to test it on, and they gave them a dose that was roughly 5 orders of magnitude too much, and they melted from the inside out. And I was beyond angry. And I read that, and nothing happened because in those days everyone covered. And I thought, well, if I were, and I one of my characters was deeply embroiled in medicine because that was, you write what you know. And I thought, if that happened to someone I cared about, what would I do? So that was book number 3. And book number 2 was set in a vet school. I'd taken a sabbatical and gone to Ireland to teach at Dublin. And I just set my book in a vet school where someone was killing off people. I wasn't allowed to kill the original outline. There were horses going to die, and they went, "Oh, no, you can't do that. You can kill people. You can't kill them."
Yeah, people have a real issue with killing animals.
Yeah. Okay.
I find it really fascinating what people have done over history for experiments and stuff, going way back in time. But what's really interesting coming from that comment is how you use something that angered you to write, because that angered you and it will definitely anger other people. So it's going to hit that nerve straight away. So that's really good writing advice. If someone was to find an article that they found enraging, that's really good to use it in the sense, what would I do in that situation? I think that's really good. Yeah.
And the ones where you go, oh, that's so interesting. Because years later, I read an article in the Indie, in the days when it existed, about a Ukrainian orthopedic surgeon who specialized in building faces on skulls, because nowadays you do it with AI, but in the old days you did it with bits of plasticine on the skull, and it was a real skill to see what they looked like. And he got invited into France to the tomb of Louis the 11th, I think. And they'd got, because we went to see it in the end, it's this tiny little village, this huge big cathedral, and this monstrosity of a marble tomb with kind of naked cherubs all over it. It's just utterly vile. And every time the French had a Huguenot uprising or something, the guys with the hammers would come in and smash this tomb to bits, which is an act of good taste as far as I was concerned. And the monks would have to rescue the box of bones. And so in the 5 centuries since those box of bones were put in there, 6 centuries, it had got a bit mixed up. And there was the king and the queen and 5 knights who had been buried with the king, which was a real honor. And they went, okay, sort these out, mate. And so the king was easy because we had a lot of portraits and they were quite good then. The portrait actually looked like the person. So that's easy. This is the king. Queen was easy because she was a small woman with bird-like bones who died in childbirth in her 30s. So that's easy. And then we sort out the knights. And 4 of the knights they had names for. And the 5th one they didn't. And he sorted all out the ones we knew who they were, sorted out the 5th one, and went, this was a woman who died in her late 50s to early 60s, and she had been trained to wear armor from before puberty. This was Marguerite de Valois. This was Joan of Arc. And they closed the tomb and threw him out of France and revoked his visa. And I photocopied that, because that was all you could do in those days, that article, sent it to my editor and went, nobody else is allowed to touch this. This is mine. I am going to write this. And she went, you understand I can't stop anyone else from writing this, don't you? And I go, yes, but you're going to. And then I wrote Into the Fire. Because and it just made, once I started looking into it, of course that was who she was. And there's been this kind of 5 centuries of men wanting to make her into something else. It was so interesting. So you read something that sparks, that brings you alive.
I think I got goosebumps then.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's amazing. Wow, what an incredible story. There was a question, but my mind's just been blown.
Sorry. Newspapers, articles, profession. You were asking me about my profession. So yes, the first few books absolutely were, I know this stuff, let's turn it into a crime novel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was it. Sorry. Yeah. Transition from crime into
Boudica. The historical stuff. Boudica.
Historical fiction and crime, yes. Was that the point where you decided to switch genres?
So after No Good Deed, this is where we probably get to places you don't want to go, or at least your audience won't want. My spiritual path is shamanic, and I had a shamanic event and after which it was, no, you're not writing crime anymore. You're going to write this Boudican stuff. And the person I phoned when I came back from my vision quest and went, it seems like I need to be writing this. And she said, no, you can't do that. First of all, your publishers have now branded you. No Good Deed had just been shortlisted for the Edgar. Your brand is a crime novelist. They won't change that. They won't take it. And anyway, there's enough to write about Boudica. I would already have done it. No, I'm sorry. I made a promise under the tree. You can't undo that. And so I ended up with a new publisher who paid me several orders of magnitude more than the old publisher. The old publisher said, we'll publish it to keep you happy, but history doesn't sell. And the new publisher went, we will make this a bestseller. Here, have all this money. And that's what let me give up the day job.
Wow. Well, how as an author, when you've got this new belief, and how did you feel when they said that is your identity, you're this writer, but you might have had that as your voice, but you found a new voice? How did you feel as an author in that situation?
Well, first of all, I was still half in the day job, so I hadn't given up the day job, but I knew I was going to have to give up the day job if I was going to do these, because this isn't not what I know. I'm not an archaeologist, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not a historian. I don't know any of this stuff, except that now I need to, because I had made a commitment to write about our shamanic past, and this was it. But I had a really supportive agent because it was, they'd given me an advance for I was walking along thinking about the sequel to No Good Deed when stuff kicked off, and so a few days later when I came back from the vision quest and said, it looks like this, and she said, well, you got to write what you got to write, but we'll have to give the advance back. And I'm going, I've spent it, because this was, I had no money. I mean, literally, I waited like 3 months before I could buy myself a £10 dictionary. Wow. Because I really wanted the dictionary, but I didn't really have any money to spare. Mortgage rates were 17% in those days. We forget that now. And I was working 3 jobs, none of them full time, but just enough to pay the bills. And she's like, you're going to have to pay back the advance. That would be hard. And she said, well, we better sell this then, hadn't we? And I was incredibly lucky. There was a thing called Crime Scene 2000, and I'm on a panel, and some lovely person in the audience asked, what are you writing now? Because every author, you go on a panel and you're talking about the book that you wrote at least a year ago, not the one you're writing now. And someone goes, what are you writing now? I said, oh, yes, thank you. I can talk about something that's current. And the editor who said, we'll publish these to keep you happy, but crime doesn't pay, was in the audience. And she clearly didn't want me to write them, but I was in it by then. It was like, God, yes, there's so much stuff. The person who told me there wasn't enough was completely wrong. So I said, this is what I'm doing, really just to piss her off. And I succeeded fantastically. She was extremely cross. But then 3 months later at Dead on Deansgate in Manchester, somebody came up after another panel and said, I was in the audience at Crime Scene. What we got? And I said, well, oddly enough, I now have 3 chapters in the synopsis. And she turned out to be a senior commissioning editor at Transworld. And she went, okay, come and see me. And I was just about to run out of money. I just got to the point where I was going to have to go back to the day job full time. And there we are. So I think the thing is, commit. If you've got the commitment, then the world, and it's your path, then the world will support you. I teach the shamanic stuff now, and I think there's a coda that it has to actually be your path and not be the path that you think you should be on. And I think, discerning those two is quite hard, because giving up your job and throwing yourself at something can crash and burn quite badly. And I've watched people do that. So it's got to actually be in the flow of whatever we call the web of life, the all that is, and then the support is there.
So, Amanda, I'm really interested in that, because I think a lot of writers will think that they have a path that they want to follow, but they won't. They might feel pressure to stick to the day job, stick to paying the bills, all the things that you just said. So if we cross over with the writing and the spirituality element as well, what's your faith in that respect, and how would somebody know what is their path, their true path, and to sort of have that confidence? What advice could you give them?
I happened to be teaching a course on this on Sunday. I was just doing the slides before we came, a bit late because not well this week. Okay. So it depends what reality you exist in. And that sounds like I'm dodging the question, but honestly, I live in a world where consensus reality, 3 dimensions and time, is a tiny fraction of all possible realities, and that with training, we can step outside in order to ask for help. Also, I live in a reality where the function of humanity is to let our head minds slow and our heart minds grow, so that our heart minds connect with the web of life. And then we ask the web of life, what do you need me to do? And we ask it every moment, and we respond in real time. And then we are an integral part of the emerging complexity of the web of life, and no longer trying to think that we have all the answers with our head. Getting to the point where you can discern the difference between a head mind, ego-led hopes and fears, impulse, projection, and a heart mind, this is my truth, is the work. And we know from Herodotus, I was writing in the Boudica series, that in the old days, people went from all over the known world, of the known European world, what the world the Greeks knew, which is basically Europe and North Africa and bits of India, to Mona, which is Anglesey, Wales, that way, to study for between 12 and 20 years. And when what was then the shamanic work of our time, which was druidic work. And then they went back to their people and took that knowledge with them. And when I was offered training with Indigenous native people, it was always going to be up to 2 decades. And if you're still alive at the end of it, you passed, and the pass rate is not very high. And And even now, the shamanic work that I teach, it's a cycle that technically takes 10 years, but I haven't had anyone who's done it in less than 16. And most of that time is learning to get out of your own way and learning how to discern what's actually real from what you want to be real. And it's not. One of the things I've just written a slide of is these 4 hours that I'm about to teach you. This is tools and a gateway. It's unlikely that in these 4 hours you're going to go, snap, this is it. This is my soul's path, which is the name of the course. We're going to give you the tools, and the tools are largely learning. If we take the concept that intention is the focus of attention, it's learning to focus our intention to balance on the knife edge of the moment and listen. And keep asking the question, what do you want of me? And listen until the answer settles into your bones in a way that is absolutely incontrovertible. And at that point, generally speaking, my head's going, yeah, but you can't do that. I ended up doing a master's in economics. Like, no, are you kidding me? Economics? Are you absolutely fucking kidding me? No. Oh, okay. I guess. And so, or, you know, you go to crime, you've got this career as a crime writer. No, you've got to completely change track. Oh, really? Are you serious? So you've got to get to the point where there is no other option, and your head is either quiescent enough or going, pardon, enough that it feels different. It just feels different. Sorry, I'm probably freaking out half your listeners.
No, not at all. I am hypnotized by this.
I love that. I mean, yeah. I mean, we've talked quite a lot on the show because I think a lot of writers will try and look for the sort of path to feeling an inner sort of peace, because we've said before, you know, depression tends to hit writers a little bit harder, I think, because the imagination element is there, and, you know, it's constantly going. So I think a lot of people who are creative minds do look for other ways to help silence the mind and, you know, find the right path. So I think everything you've said is really intriguing, and obviously it's worked really well for you. So, you know, you've got my attention. I'm intrigued.
All right. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's Brilliant. The whole thing of the podcast. You know, obviously we speak to people, what works for you, what's really, you know, what can we learn? And then we take that on board. So I think a lot of our listeners will really appreciate the depth that you went into there.
Okay, thank you.
This could be a long conversation, but we've got an hour to put all this into. So what I need to do, we're slightly over this part, is to go on to part 2, and we'll talk about any human power, because I'm sure there'll be questions coming in for Manda at the end of this as well. So I'm going to play you part 2 video, watch the story, and hopefully afterwards, Manda can give us a little blurb reading of any human power. So come in right up. Manda, please let us know what any human power is all about.
Oh, God. You didn't tell me you can ask that. Okay, so I'm calling it a mytho-political thriller. So both those things. So I think the easiest way is probably, so it was another shamanic event. And I won't go into the detail. We can have the details some other time. But what I got, I thought I'd given up writing. I really thought after Schumacher, after the Masters, I was doing a podcast. You know, we can record the podcast now. We can put it out tomorrow morning. It's of the moment. We're in the middle of the 6th mass extinction. There's a meta crisis. It feels like I can perhaps help with that. Let's do something useful. And writing seemed not to be that. Also, I've been writing history. Anyway, I went up the hill for the week, did what I was told to do. And at the end of it, I had the bare bones of the book. So the bare bones of the book were the first scene. There were kind of 2 bones. One was the first scene. The first scene is a woman about my age, kind of like me, lying on a bed, and her 15-year-old grandson, I do not have grandkids, but my wife does. So 15-year-old grandson is at her bedside saying, when you come home, can we go up the hill and watch the crows go to bed? So I work, you know, this is all going backwards, crow feather. And she says, no, I'm not coming home. You know this. I'm dying. This is it. There is no coming home from here. We have talked about this. And he says, yeah, but you're the only one who gets me, and I don't want to be in a world with you not in it. And she realizes he's serious. And in the course of the ensuing conversation, she says, okay, I don't know what comes next, but if you really need me and you call, if it's within my power, I will come. And then she dies. And she dies having made that promise. And we and they have, the gods have all paused in their labors and gone, okay, that you're keeping that promise. And so the whole of the rest of the book is told from her perspective, locked in the between place between the lands of life and the lands of death, which is a shamanic place that we explore. And the second thing that I got, this is one of those things, I thought I made it super clear in the book that this is not something to do at home. So I'm making it clear again, don't do this. She is taken into the void, and the void is an extremely dangerous place to be. She's dead and she's still scared out of her wits. Please take this on board. She's had 4 decades of training, and she's still scared out of her wits, and she's still not quite clear what to do, and she's got the crow there telling her what to do. And it teaches her how to split the timelines so that she can see various potential likely futures. And the first time she does it, she sees all the ways that Finn, her grandson, could kill himself. But the implication, if you're there, if you let me rephrase that. Anyway, let's not get complicated on the theory. If you're there, there is a chance that you can take agency, and a future that has not yet emerged because you haven't taken the agency could be different to the ones that you're seeing. So she's given the option to do that. And then she's later in the book, she splits it twice more, once for the members of her family and once where she sees the whole of humanity and basically sees the bus that is us and all the ways we could go over the edge of the cliff. Multiple ways, but knows that if she's there, and now she's learned a little bit about the ways the dead can take agency, which is not easy. Particularly, you've got kind of license straight after death, but then it gets harder. And so then her job is, how can I influence the rest of the family in order that the whole of humanity not go over the edge of the cliff? And this is predicated on the one thing that I was absolutely clear on when I was up the hill was there is still a window. Yes, the meta crisis is bad. Yes, we are doing fuck all to stop it. But if we can bring enough of a tipping point of people together behind a common cause and a common set of values predicated on a completely different paradigm, then we can turn the bus. And so then the instruction is, okay, so you've got the backbone, write the book. And had I not been doing the podcast, I would have had no clue. But actually, in the end, I've written a thriller, and the thriller is a 14-year-old girl sends a tweet, posts a tweet, which was a real tweet. I need to say this, an actual 12-year-old posted the tweet, and then it was taken down within half an hour. And again, I was really angry about that. And I'd been looking, I didn't want to create a Greta situation where the fulcrum of the novel was about the climate. I wanted it to be about something else. This tweet flashed past it. I happened to be on Twitter at the point it was up. Okay, I'll have that. And I'll have a family that doesn't make you take it down in half an hour. What happens? And my writing style is very much, let's set things up and see what happens. I've got no idea. Let's see what happens. And what happens is that there's a global movement arises that is then facing up against the establishment. And then the establishment is going to fight back, and it's going to fight back dirty and nasty. And that's the thriller arc. It ends on they managed to, in the end, force a general election. And I was pretty convinced we would get this out, and I'd have till the end of the year to build this movement, and the fuckers announced a general election 2 days before. I was so angry.
Yeah.
So that the book is how we can get through. It's a through-topia. So
Nice.
I think we need to see the ways through. We don't need the dystopias. Nobody needs to see the ways it could go really, really bad. We all know that. And people who write them are still going, yes, but if I show how bad it's going to be, then everybody will change. And I wrote my dissertation on the neurophysiology of language when I was at Schumacher because they let me. And this is not how language works. This is not how people work. You can just about force a change in behavior, actually hold a gun to somebody's head or their kid's head. Beyond that, no, they don't change their behavior. They don't, because, things are bad now, and if you completely change your entire paradigm, it might be better for your kids. It's not. We've got to make something better than that. And utopias are no good because you can never see how you get there. Ursula Le Guin wrote some amazing utopias, but they're on other blinking planets. We need to see how we get from exactly where we are now to a future that we would be proud to leave as our legacy. I want my Faith's grandkids to look back at us and go, yeah, they left it way too late. And they made a huge number of really bad mistakes, but when it really mattered, they all got together, they asserted their common values, they brought the amazing creativity of humanity to bear, and And now we are living a life that is worthwhile because on a flourishing planet with a biosphere that's actually intact, because they got it right. Because if we don't get it right, they won't be living on a planet with a biosphere that's intact. So you're not writing history anymore, Scott. As you know, I had a sequel to Treachery all mapped out, but I know that's not where it's at anymore, guys. Yeah. So does that answer the question that you asked?
Yeah, it does. It's one of the most fascinating answers that we've ever had. I think so. I was on the verge when you were talking there of having a sort of like on-camera crisis, because whenever anyone talks about the afterlife or death, or even though I wrote a book about it myself, I still panic because things pop up, and just because it's the unknown for me anyway. I'm not as spiritually inclined. I'm 34 now. I am on various different paths, and I'm very open-minded about various different things, and I won't write anything off. But it does fill me with a sense of dread when somebody talks about, voids and things like that, simply because in my own mind, I've not been able to process it. So yeah, it's really fascinating when you talk about that as a source of inspiration and build a whole novel around it. And I think it's brilliant. And as people have put in the chat, some people have already bought the book just off the back of it. So
thank you, Anya.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Amazing. That is mind-blowingly, as you mentioned, Chris, for some reason, not for some reason, for all good reasons, this is just very interesting to us. So we're fully invested in this conversation right now.
Do you say that to all your authors?
Oh, yeah. No, we don't. No. What I was going to say is, obviously, writing historical fiction is very, very different to writing crime fiction. And the depth of what this novel contains, the knowledge of what this novel has, how much different was your writing process from writing your previous books to this one?
Well, everything was different, is the honest answer. Partly, it's a long time since I've written crime novels. I had 20 years of writing historical novels. And the thing about historical novels is you're looking at what actually happened and trying to work out why. And particularly with the ones that I wrote, trying to look at the gaps between what we think happened, what we were told happened, particularly when I was a kid, compared to what I think is more likely to have happened, in fact. Whether it's Boudica times or Joan of Arc not being who we were told, or the Maquis and the SOE, there's so much stuff that isn't part of the general narrative. This is looking forward. This is, how do I walk us forward from exactly where we are to a change in paradigm in a way that doesn't feel like you're being preached at. It's got to be a thriller. Well, it didn't have to be, but I wanted it to be a thriller, and feels natural and feels workable, and if I go under bus tomorrow, this could be a blueprint that would actually work. Everything in this book, every single thing that's suggested, in this book, other than there's a catamaran that I designed picking up parts from elsewhere. I see no reason. I've spoken to boat builders. Yes, it could happen. As far as I know, it doesn't exist yet, but it could. Every other thing is being done somewhere in the world. All I did was bring them all together. And a lot of the politics, I was beyond happy last week. There's somebody called Audrey Tang, who is the digital minister of Taiwan, who completely changed the nature of digital Taiwan. They have social media that, instead of mining our limbic systems and mining our attention and bringing us to the edges of our tribalism, they ignore the people at the edges, or they ignore the comments at the edges that are often from bots. And they have social media kudos for building bridges across divides. They managed to they had their general election in January, and China, the PRC, really wanted China's option to win. And Audrey was doing what she called pre-bunking videos, showing this is what a fake video looks like. This is how you make it. This is what Audrey, your digital minister, will look like when they faked me. This is how you tell. And now we're going to help you get into groups with people of very different ideas and ways of looking at the world, but you're going to get together with people that you've met actually physically, so they're real, they're not bots. And if any of you thinks there's a fake video, you bring it into your group. If most of you agree that it's fake, the AI will then look at it, look at the language styles, and then it will bring you others, and you can decide if they're fake, and then we'll know what the fake ones are, and we'll be able to tag the real ones. It's genius. And I just stole all of that totally and put it in the book, stitched it together with a whole bunch of other things. And then I got an email from Audrey Tang going, I don't know how you did this unless you've hacked our brains, but you are writing exactly what we're trying to do. and she's given me an endorsement for the book, so I was beyond happy. So yeah, I just took a lot of stuff that's already happening and put it all together.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, for someone who's been writing as long as you have, you just mentioned writing crime for since 20 years ago. You had a lot of praise for your novels from a lot of big authors. I mean, Lee Child, Ian Rankin, Paula Braxton. Nice. How does that change for you? Do you get to the point where you're like, yeah, I deserve that? Or is it always a surprise for you?
No, it's always lovely. I mean, also, I was in the Crime Writers Association. I set up the Historical Writers Association. I'm now in the process of trying to set up the Thrutopian Writers Association. Or I co-set up the Historical Writers, but it was my idea. So we spent a lot of time. And part of the reason I set up the HWA is because the CWA had been such fun. You get to sit around with people who want to look at what's the difference between a mystery and a thriller. Or discuss semicolons, or and what's plausible. And I'm an anaesthetist, and I can tell you guys, there is nothing you can put in a pad and put over somebody's nose and then they fall over, unless you fall over too. Those kinds of things that you sit around and you spend a lot of time with people in conferences. So some of it was, these are my friends, and that's really nice. The ones that I really, really value, I really value all of them. But things like Audrey Tang, I don't know Audrey. At least I didn't until 2 weeks ago. And that just came out of the blue. It's like, you read the book? Oh, thank you. And you liked it. And you thought the ideas would work. Yay, can we talk more about this? So, because I have to write the sequel now. So, yeah, I think it never stops being really, really nice when one's fellows write good stuff. That's the key thing. And this one particularly, because it's everything I've written has had a political purpose, but this one has a very overt political purpose, and it's not conventional.
Great. Okay.
I mean, this interview's gone on for 51 minutes, and it's been the quickest 51 minutes of my life. I can't believe it's gone that fast. Do
I just talk too much? I'm sorry, Chris.
No, it's brilliant. Normally, I get questions pop up, and it's like one every sort of 10 seconds or whatever a question might pop up. But today, my brain's just going bang, 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 bang. I've not got time to ask all the questions that I want to ask. There's so many. Just park writing for a second, and then you've got the spiritualism, which I could talk for hours on, I think. And then obviously the political element as well is fascinating. And yet, then you've got the brilliant authors that you've worked with, and the history and the impact that you've had on writing. Yeah, I think we're going to need a sequel, Chris.
I'm here. I can Zoom. I can do anything.
Brilliant. All right, Chris, we're going to have to move on because we do need to get into the staple questions, and it means we can get questions from the people that are watching as well. So if you have a question for Manda, please send them in now. And Chris, I'm sure we can stick to the staple questions. You're welcome to ask others. Of course you are. But as you're aware, Manda, it's not been very well this week. We've got an hour show. Okay. We don't want to be too far. We don't want to be too much over. That's all I'm saying. But here we go. What's the story? Part 3 coming right up, guys. Get your questions in. Okay, community question time. Chris Hooley, let's kick us off, please.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to stick to the questions because otherwise I'll go on a tangent.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could take any character from fiction and make that character your own, which character would you choose and what would you do with them?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about this one. And it changes with every book that I read. But recently, the book that I am most in love with is The Half-Life of Valerie Kay by Natasha Pulley. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so I want Valerie Kay. He's just so cool. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. Honestly, she'd be an amazing person to talk to. And she's British and same time zone, all good things like that. He's the principal is he's a Russian. He's got 2 PhDs. This is back in the 60s, and he's been sent to Siberia. And he wakes up. The first opening paragraph, he's waking up in the gulag, and his hair is frozen to the pillow. But the opening sentence is, and what he did not know was his last day. He wakes up, and he goes into the commissioner's office and they go, okay, you're moving, and he thinks he's being taken away to be shot, and actually he's taken away to a place that they call the chocolate factory because that's what they called it, and it's a nuclear processing plant, and he's a nuclear physicist, and the whole thing is a fascinating insight, and it's a love story, and it's a kind of a thriller, and it's this amazingly super bright man who thinks of himself as useless, and clearly, I mean, he's got a brain the size of several planets, and it's just beautifully written, and he's such an entertaining person. So he would be the one.
Wow, definitely.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'd do with him, but he's so clever, I could do anything.
Yeah, well, I've just searched that book as you were chatting about it, and I found it. So I'll have a look at that. And Natasha Pulley, you said, is the author? Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
The Kingdoms. She's written some amazing stuff. I have her new one, the Mars House, ready to read, but I'm saving it for when I need the best book.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay, if you could take any story, whether that be a TV show, a film, or a novel, and change the ending to that story, what ending are you going to choose and why?
Well, I don't watch TV or films, so that narrowed it down quite a lot. So that was another big one. So if it was one of my own, I would like to have changed the ending of the Boudica books, because I had to write what actually happened. I get lots of emails from the States going, why did you make her die? It wasn't me, it was the fucking Romans. If we, the tribes of the island of Britain, had won that one last battle, or had not been forced into a line fight and had just continued, the Roman legions, when they marched, were incredibly vulnerable. This is a whole history, and I won't go into it, but if we'd won that, the whole history of Western Europe would be different. So I would change that. But for somebody else, I was thinking really hard about that. There's an amazing book. It's heartrending. Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. And it's a kind of, it's a gay love story set in the 80s in Glasgow in the housing estates. And it's a kind of a Romeo and Juliet where these two young lads, one of them's Protestant, one of them's Catholic, and they should hate each other. And it's heartrending. And right at the end, Mungo's mother has basically palmed him off on a couple of blokes who take him away on a fishing holiday, and it's horrible. And he kills one of them, plunges them in a loch. This is probably a spoiler. You'll have to cut that out. And comes back. And in the meantime, his lover's been beaten to bits by his elder brother, and they see each other across the road as the police are coming. And his older brother's going to protect him, but Jamie's across the road. And you see their eyes meet, and there's an invitation of, come to me, I'm going to London. Nobody will care in London. It doesn't matter what the church is. It doesn't matter. You sleep with, come with me. And you just see him turn back, and he's already, you can see he's going to have wins to prove his virility, and he's going to have to be part of the hard boys. And it's just, oh God, no, don't do that. Just go, just get on the bus, please get on the bus. So that actually, I would change that one. It's such a beautifully written novel. I think he won the Booker with Shuggie Bain was his first one, and he's such a good writer. But it's just like, oh my goodness, no, change the ending, please. So that actually,
just found his website, and again, taking lots of good advice here. He's also a fashion designer.
Douglas Stewart is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Multi-talented.
That'd be an interesting podcast too, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Keep us going, Chris. Come on. Last couple of questions.
I think this is going to be a really interesting response based on obviously what you said. But you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your writing career. What would you be happy with? What is success to you?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because success at the time, there was a point where being able to give up the day job was success. And there was a point where being shortlisted for the Orange was success, or being invited onto something like this is success. Now, we swerve the bus from the edge of the cliff. But nothing else matters. Honestly, that we have a future that we can bequeath to the generations that come after us that is worth living on a planet that has a living biosphere. Nothing else matters. If I get to when I think I'm going to die, I have a shamanic vision where I think I've seen my gravestone. If I get to that and we're even close to veering away from the edge of the cliff, I'll be an extremely happy individual.
Wow.
So yeah,
we need to probe that, Chris, because nobody's ever said on the show before that they've had visions of their own death. and I'm very intrigued.
Well, I'm not good, but I don't. I must be more tired than I think, because I don't usually say that, and I'm not going to tell you when it is.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, I've got to
yeah.
go.
Does that fill you with fear though? Because if I had a vision, let's say I had and I thought, right, I've got 14 years left or something, I would probably spend 14 years panicking.
No, you wouldn't. You would spend 14 years making every moment count. You would have to fall in love with every second of being alive. And the thing is, we are all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know when.
Yeah.
And that might be wrong. There wasn't a name on the gravestone. There was just a date. It was in the right. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But so it might be wrong. If I'm still alive the day after that particular date, there's a bunch of people that will celebrate with me. But
obviously, without saying, obviously, don't want to reveal years. But did you know what kind of month it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a double digit. So it could be American or UK. Who knows?
Well, that'd be wintertime, though, right?
No.
Well, you're trying to narrow it down, Chris. So
October, November, December is double digits, right?
No. I mean, it was AB.
No, like
XY.
double digits. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So like, I don't know, whatever today is, 2106.
Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
But and that could be well, it couldn't be with 21, but if it was 0706 24, it could be the 7th of June or the 6th of July, depending on which side of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So there's a degree of flexibility there, but I know what year. Yeah. But I don't, because it might not have been my gravestone.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
Yeah.
It might have been one of us.
Well, or who knows? Lots of people die on any individual day. But
exactly.
It doesn't. Yeah. From my point of view, first of all, death is a rite of passage. It's not an ending. It's a place. It's the next step on a journey that I'm quite happy doing. But while I'm alive, I am going to make every fucking second count.
Yeah.
But I think
I still want to ask more questions on this, but how big of an answer? Could you give like a brief answer on what you think is afterlife that we know?
Can I do what? Sorry, say again.
What do you think is afterlife based on our life?
Well, you just read the book, because Lamb dies, and then it's there. That's easy. It's in the book.
That's what you think is. So that book is kind of what your beliefs are. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
I'm definitely gonna check that out.
I'm going to probe ever so slightly more, because I am really intrigued. But what is it like when you have a vision? Like, can you describe this sort of experience? Like, do you have to forgive me if I'm saying the wrong things here. But
no, you're not. I'm
meditate?
just.
Do you go into like
sometimes.
a meditative state before you sort of have a vision? Is it really
sometimes.
clear when they happen? Can you put us in your position?
So the answer is there's a lot of variables. I am definitely not. So brainwaves, if we go neurophysiological, beta, alpha, theta, delta, gamma, I am definitely not in beta. I'm probably in low alpha, high theta, maybe into delta, gamma, not gamma, probably theta, delta. And there's some really well tried and tested techniques for moving through those stages. And shamanically, there's also drumming. So the visions that led to the book, I had while I was drumming for the students, and that's really quite rare, because generally my attention needs to be on the students. But once in a while, I just get kind of hijacked, and they're okay, come with me. And generally speaking, it's so the visions that led to accidental gods. I was sitting with the fire. It was the winter solstice. That's what my wife and I do at the winter solstice: turn all the lights off, sit with the fire, reflect on the year, and an image kind of imprints. It's like a waking dream. And in that case, it was an image of, the Earth as seen from the moon, that kind of blue pearl floating through the blackness of space. And it had all around it this really, really complex mesh of light, of crisscrossing very fine threads all over. And I've seen it several times. And then if it's night, when I see it, they're the color of moonlight. And if it's daytime, they're the color of sunlight. And they were crossing all over. And there's a kind of knowing that comes, and the knowing was that every point of crossing was a node of consciousness, and some of them were human and most of them were not. And that was it. Then I was given a vision of me standing on a stage in the States with a lot of people. And I was like, but I don't fly. I've made a commitment not to fly. What the fuck are you telling me to? And so that one was like, I actually have no idea what this means. And it took me But then 3 days later, I get an invitation to go to the States with someone going, there's one of you, there's 50 of us. Do you want 50 flights to the UK, or are you going to come to us? And if I hadn't had the visions, I would have gone, no, you just don't do this. But I had. I thought, yeah, okay, I guess I'll come to the States then. And the other thing that came with that particular set was, it's not like my eyes are seeing it. It's like the bit that you write from. When you're writing, you can presumably, I think, you can have a felt sense of what your characters are doing. It's that same sense of, I hear them talking to me, or I see them walking down the street and think, oh, why are you going down there? Oh, that's interesting. I'll write that. That same set of kind of inner knowing and things. When we get people coming to train who've done a lot of drugs and they're expecting to actually see things, and they're going, nothing's happening. Going, no, let go of that stuff. It's an inner screen. And what I got at the same time as the other one was a conversation whereby I'd got my first 9 students had gone all the way around the wheel, taken 16 years. And I'm going, yay, guys, look, me, why go me? I've got 9 students round. And the guys I work with are going, and 9 people in 16 years is not going to cut it. You're going to have to start teaching a scale. Right. I thought this was what I was for. Teaching a scale? How do I do that? What can I teach safely at scale? I need to be in the room with these people. I can do a dozen at one time. What are you talking about? So that kind of thing took a really long time to unpick, like 18 months. The visions that led to me going up the hill that led to the book were really clear, really 100% crystal clear. Take this 30,000-year-old fossilized horse's tooth, find some holistically sourced horse skin, go to the hill on which you live. There's a laid hedge with a very thick bit that was laid in Tudor times. Bind the tooth onto this place, sit with your back to it, looking down the valley in a particular frame of mind connected to a particular god as the sun goes down for at least an hour every night. And it was totally 100%. I've maybe 3 times in my life. One was the Boudica books, one was going to Devon, and this was just do this. And there was no nudges, no metaphors. It was, and you don't argue. I've learned that much is if you don't go, but why? You just go, okay, I'll do that. And a week of sitting, it was gorgeous. It was August. The visions happened at the summer solstice 3 years ago. And so I sat for a week, and by the end I had the book, and then the instruction was, and now you need to write the book. I was training to be a homeopath, but guys, I can't do both. And you go, yep, and you need to write the book. So homeopathy out the window, just do the book. Does that answer the question that you asked? Is that clear enough?
Yeah, I mean that's more so than I was expecting. A little bit of insight, but that was fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm probably freaking
even
out.
More the goosebumps element. Yeah, no, I think it's brilliant.
Oh, there's so much we have to learn now,
freaking out your
Chris.
students.
Okay, we got a question from Anya. We'll take that, and then what we'll do is we'll let Manda read us out of the show. We're slightly over, so we do apologize for being a bit longer than planned, but that's all good. So Anya says, question: if you could travel to the past and spend a week at any place and time, what would it be? What piece of modern tech would you bring, and why? Love that question. Thank you.
Oh, right. Okay, I'll try and keep this short. There's a concept of initiation cultures and trauma cultures, and the initiation cultures are the indigenous cultures of forever 300,000 years of human existence. But the trauma culture, initiation cultures, there is a contained encounter with death. Those are the rites of passage. Trauma cultures, our culture, we just stack our encounters with death. There's no containment. The containment in initiation cultures from the elders and the tribe and the land and the spirits, everything. And in that initiation, in that containment of that encounter, you find the edges of yourselves, and you find how to ask for help, and that help will be answered. That asking will be answered. So you find the ways of asking for help and receiving the answer, and that brings you into a more profound connection with yourself and your relations of the human and more than human world. Something happened to split that, and now we have a trauma culture. We have to relearn our birthright. We should be able to do this, and our culture doesn't give it to us, and we have to re-find it. I would like to go back to see what happened, to understand where the trauma came from, because then the healing. And I don't even know what bit of modern tech would I take. I'd probably take a torch, to be perfectly honest, so I don't fall over or trip over a hairy mammoth when I'm not expecting it, or kick a saber-toothed tiger that I wasn't expecting, because it's about 10,000 years ago something happened and we don't know what it is, and I would like to see that. Good question, Anya. Well done. Thank you.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wow,
Interesting.
that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to ask one more question. Will you come back at some point just so we
Of
can
course,
have
yes.
another
I'd be honoured and
show?
delighted.
Yeah.
I just think I'm going to have freaked out all of your people in the
No,
Welsh
not
guys
at all.
but...
Well, it's a good sign they've been very quiet, so they're probably sat there going, "Whoa,"
or they just all logged off. That's
no,
an
they
option.
did it. Also, there is one more question before we go, and that question is: where can people find more about you? Where can they buy your books and just stalk you a little bit?
Okay, I would put that in the chat, but it's asking me to log in to Google to join the chat. I'm afraid it'll kick me off, so I haven't done that.
No, don't stress about that.
My name, mandascott.co.uk, is my main website. If you want the podcasts or the membership for the Accidental Gods that teaches you how to connect to the web of life, that's accidentalgods.life. If you want the dreaming, come to me and I'll send you on to that. And we did the Throughtopia masterclass. So Throughtopia is THRU-topia. So throughtopia.life. The masterclass is now a because it was every alternate Sunday for 6 months, but now it's here's the videos, do it in your own time. So that's there. But mainly, if you go to mandascott.co.uk, I'm fairly certain that my lovely wife, who makes my website, has created a page where you can connect to all the other bits.
Yeah, brilliant. That is in the description, guys. So if you want a quick link to that, you just go and find it in there. Yeah, brilliant, Manda. From us, I know from me, I know Chris has enjoyed this, and I certainly have. Thank you so much. I mean, my mind is now open to a whole new idea that I've got to go and investigate a little bit. But also, your book sounds amazing. I will be looking into that. And thank you for telling us your story today. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you for the questions.
Thank you for me, and I'll pass you on to Chris before you can read us out.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I'm just really, again, thank you. I'm definitely going to look into everything. You've piqued my interest, which does happen on the show, but never to this scale. Because now I'm just like, boom, 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 loads of questions.
Yay!
But yeah, it's been an absolute honor to speak to you, and I'm looking forward to hearing you read us out. So thank you.
Super. So do I just read now, or is there something more music? No,
okay. No. Just Manda's going to read to us, guys, and then we'll say goodbye. Well, we'll wave goodbye. But please hit that like button, leave us a comment, follow Manda on social media, and thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Manda's going to read us a little bit of a story.
I am. So this is the voice of Caitlin, who is 14 years old, and she's explaining why she's done what she's done. It's not that you're too old or too white. Caitlin is mixed race, by the way, and she's talking to her sister. I'll start again. It's not that you're too old or too white, not even that you care too much. It's that you're too good. You still think there's hope. You grew up in a world where there was still a possibility that you'd get to old age and everything you cared about would still be there, still working. If Nye had his way, it would be working better, would be more equitable, more sustainable, more just. And you still believe, because this is what you've always believed. In your world, this is possible. My world's not like that. I don't have hope that we'll all find our best selves and make everything all right. I know we're screwed. Everyone who can use Google for more than about 5 minutes knows we're screwed. The climate's in meltdown. The oceans are turning acid and the rain is full of forever toxins. Democracy is broken. As Niall never grows bored of reminding us, we've only ever had a kleptocracy calling itself a democracy, but even that is being destroyed in real time by the sociopaths who've stolen control. The economy is running out over a canyon like Wile E. Coyote. The gravity's going to bite soon, and we will all smash to tiny pieces when it hits the floor. Social media companies are feasting on the young, and AI just went feral. So you don't even have to know how to code to make the bad stuff happen. Any 10-year-old with a grudge can stick together bioweapons that could take us all out, and if the kid doesn't do it, the sentient AI will. She paused to push a swathe of hair back from her face, and in the gap she left, her older sister said, "If there is no point, why are you fighting?" And Caitlin said, "Because I'm tired of this. I am tired of being gaslit. I am tired of turning on the TV or walking into the village shop and seeing papers lined up from a world that is dying, and the headlines scream about total trivia because their whole world would collapse if they actually let themselves know the truth. Because when the bus that is humanity goes over the last edge of the last cliff, I do not want the old white men who drove us there to have their fossilized fucking fingers still clamped on the wheel. I want some agency, just a fraction of time, to feel like I can live my life outside the toxic, stinking shadow they have made. I want to breathe air that feels clean, even if it's full of sulfur. I want to drink water they haven't poisoned and eat food that's not giving me diabetes. I just want the world to be sane for 5 minutes before the end.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Manda, thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming. See you around.